Now this is going to be a pretty short intro today because this is already a long tie. Hello everybody, welcome to Savage Flies. I'm Matt, thanks for stopping by. So the pattern I'm talking about, I got it from Dick Stewart's Bass Flies, which oddly enough, this was one of the first fly tying books I bought. I got it when it came out in 1989. And I'm going to do a frog pattern out of this book. I've been wanting to tie this thing for quite a while. I just haven't gotten around to it yet because it's really pretty complicated. I mean, it's not complicated as far as materials go. Really, it's just three materials. You've got some deer hair. I'm using a yellow and a frog green. Got some rubber legs and then some eyes, just some stick-on eyes. So for the material, it's pretty easy. But if you've spun a lot of deer hair, you know that it's not the easiest thing to do. But if you're a bass fisherman with a fly rod, you probably want some kind of frog in your box, and I think this is one of the better looking patterns out there. And it's pretty cool. I think you're gonna like it. Let's give it a shot. All right, so there's one in the vise. This is on a size 4. Now I should probably call this a crooked leg frog, because look at those back legs. They're a little crooked, but they do have a little bit of wiggle to them. So let's get started. All right, I'm tying this on a 4. This is a 3X long. It's a generic curve shank hook. I kind of like the look of it on that. And it's probably, I think that's a 1X strong hook, but this is fine. This thing's gonna float with all the deer hair we have on it. It's gonna float like crazy. So don't even need to put a base of thread down. Just start it somewhere toward the back where we're gonna wrap this first bunch of deer hair. So the first thing we're gonna do is spin 2 bunches of deer hair. Now, a pretty good clump right here, and I don't know if you can sort of tell that there's a little bit of fuzz in that underfur on there. So if you've got a comb, it would probably be easiest to get it out. I've got this dubbing toothbrush right here, which will get some of it out, but not all of it. So I'm just gonna have to live with some of it right there, and that's fine. I'm not a perfectionist. So take this clump of deer hair, and this isn't a huge clump, because it's going to be the tail, which is or the tail end, which is kind of small. So just a real loose wrap around it, not tight at all, and then a second wrap around it. Now we're going to pull it tighter, and it's going to spin. I'm going to just pull it tight without letting go of my material hand, the tail. So I've got that right there. I've flared that out. Now I'm going to put one more wrap and let go of it with my material hand, and it will spin around. And some of it's going to catch on the point of the hook, but that's fine. We can we'll have to pluck that out with our bodkin in just a second. So after you do that, zigzag it through and then get your thread up right in front of it. Okay, so what I'm talking about, you see some of that hair right here, and got caught on the hook. Just want to pull that out. We're trimming all this, significantly here in a few minutes, but that'll make it a little bit easier to trim too. So grab another clump, maybe that size, maybe just a little bit bigger, and we'll do the same thing. Just lay this on here, one loose wrap, very loose, and the second one's still pretty loose. Pull it around, and then another wrap, and we've got a big, big ball right here. So zigzag one more wrap through and get it up to the front. Now, what you'll want to do here, and we'll do this in many steps along the way, just kind of grab the hook with your material hand and then just push back. If you have a hair packer, now is a good chance to use it, but the only one I have is this brass one, and it would cut some of these pieces, so I'm just using my fingers, and you can get it pretty tight with just your fingers. Okay, so now take your thread just a couple turns up. So after you've got it bunched in like that, you might want to just put a little half hitch right here and just kind of pull it tight. In case you snip your thread, it's not going to unravel on you. But before we tie in some legs, we're going to go ahead and trim this piece right here. The butt end of the frog. Now I have this Stonfo razor tool right here, which does make it a little bit easier. You can use any straight edge razor or just scissors. Scissors are fine. They might take a little bit longer, but I'm going to trim it on the bottom first. So I'll pull my thread, park it out of the way, so hopefully I won't accidentally snip it. But I'm going to trim the bottom first because that's the one you have to be the most careful with. If you don't cut this one short enough, you will end up without or just closing your hook gap, and it will reduce your fish catching ability. So cut the bottom and then just take your time, slowly go around it. And this one we're going to taper it down to the point of the hook, or not the point of the hook, to the actual hook. Okay, I'm going to trim a couple of these with my scissors. And this is just the very back end. We're going to do that many more times, but before we get too far ahead, I want to go ahead and tie in the rear legs. Now, in the Dave Whitlock version of this, he just uses, rubber legs, legging, banding material. And I'm going to just pull this off, and I'm going to take 3 of them. That's actually 4, but I'm going to take 3 and then tie a couple of knots in them. So you got a knot in it right there, and then not too much farther back, another knot. And then I split the tip so that we've got kind of a toes on it. So let's move this out of the way. And one tip I think we should keep in mind is that when we're wrapping that next the hair, it's quite likely going to spin these legs around. So if anything, cheat with them a little bit more toward your side. Let's do 2 of them right here. I'm going to put the one on the other side. Get my length. I think that's going to be fine right there. And catch this in with just a couple of wraps. So right now, they're coming off about like I want, but spinning this next deer hair, it could very well cause these guys to spin around on you. So I'm going to just try to put some really tight locking wraps right here. Now I'm going to snip off the front of this, just these little butt ends right here. I think the deer hair would not spin that well if I was trying to spin it on top of that rubber. So I'm going to go ahead and bury this right here. I think it will spin fine if I'm spinning it on a thread base. So, all right, those legs look okay right now. We'll see if they stay okay when we start wrapping the next bit of deer hair. Okay, so this next chunk, about the same as that last one. And how I'm going to do it, I'm going to do 2 greens and then I think 2 yellows. And we'll see if that gives us the nice yellow bands. So another wrap there, and then just push this back. You might want to push these back in between every wrap or every bunch of deer hair that we tie on. So let's do, I think, 1 more green, and then we'll go to some yellow. And this wrap is just a little bit bigger, a very loose wrap. Another second loose wrap, and then the 3rd wrap is really spinning it around. Okay, now I'll zigzag 1 more wrap through just to get it back up to the front. And I'm going to pack it in again. Okay, so now we've got a significant part of green here. Let's tie in 2 bunches of yellow to give us a little band. Again, a loose wrap. Very loose wrap, and still a loose wrap, and now tighten it up, and the 3rd wrap as I spin it. So I did not pull much of that fuzz out right there, and that's probably going to show at the end, but that's okay. So that's 1 yellow. I'm going to do 1 more yellow, then 2 greens and 2 yellows, and then that's going to get us up the front. I'll speed this up because this is a pretty time-consuming part of the tie. Okay, now we're mostly done with the wrapping. We're going to wrap a little bit more at the end, but I'm going to stop it right here and then trim it before I put in the head, because after I trim it, I'm going to do a couple of front legs. Now they're totally optional, but I think, why not? Dave Whitlock had them in, and I've seen a lot of flies without the front legs, but we'll go ahead and do them. Okay, so that last part took a good bit of time with 6 or 7 clumps that we had to spin around. Now this part is going to take even longer. Just trim it. Trim it slowly, take your time. You can always take more off later. And if you take too much off, you can't put it back. So just use your razor blade or your scissors and then just slowly trim at it. It's a whole lot of blowing in this part. But I'll speed this up so you don't have to watch in real time. And you do want to be careful around the legs. If you hit them with the razor blade, you will probably cut them off. Okay, we're getting there. It's still a little bit fuzzy, and you might want to just take your scissors when you get down here to the legs to be careful around them and to try to get any of this under fur that is showing, because we got a little bit lazy when I was cleaning that deer hair, prepping it to tie in. So that's why you see all this under fur sticking out, but not too big a deal. I think it's fine. So before I go any farther, I'm going to tie in my front legs, and they're not as big as the back. Again, totally optional. So I'm just going to tie in one little strand here. And how long? I don't know. Whatever you think is going to look good. So I'm just a couple of wraps right there. Pull that on top. Kind of pull them back, I guess, right here. Okay, there you go. There's one front leg, and there's the other one. Just try to situate them, because we're going to spin a couple more clumps of green to get the head, and then we'll cut some flat spots to put the eyes on. Okay, I think that's enough to get us up front and finish it off. I'm gonna go ahead and put a whip finish on before I trim that the front end here. Now for trimming the front, I'm gonna kind of go at an angle. I mean, a frog doesn't have a flat head. They're kind of fat-headed frogs, but they're also a little bit pointed. So I'm just going to try to trim this up leave a little bit of point on the front. Now I'm going to trim some of this with my scissors, because I was getting close to my front legs there, and even though they're not necessary, I don't want to accidentally cut them off. Okay, we're almost done. Now spend as much time as you want cleaning it up, trying to get the right profile, maybe a slender. This one could probably be a little bit more slender in the back than it is on the front, so maybe we should just try to trim a little bit more right here. Be careful with those legs. Just work on your profile till you get what you think looks like a frog. Okay, I think that looks enough like a frog. Of course, it's a no-eyed frog right now, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to just right in front of these front legs, I'm going to glue a couple of super glue, a couple of little eyes on here. So you're going to need to trim a flat spot. Frogs' eyes are kind of on the side of their head. So I've created a couple little flat spots right there. And I'm going to take some super glue. So, well, first off, I've got mirage eyes. These guys right here in 5/32. They're kind of cool looking. They are adhesive on the back, but that's not enough to have it stick to this, you know, deer hair. You're going to need a big drop of super glue and then put the eyes in that way. Now, I didn't mention that is a gel super glue. I think it would work just a little bit better than a really liquidy super glue. So just get that, try to get it in the flat spot you just created on the side there. Okay, so there's one eye. It's a little bit buried, but I think we're okay with that. So let's do the same thing on the other side. And I put it on with my tweezers just because I don't really want to get super glue on my fingers, and it gives you a little bit more control. So there's the other front eye, just right up there on the side of the head, kind of by the front legs. So I think that's it. We can call this one done. You might want to put a drop of head cement right up under there for those thread wraps, but there you go. Not terribly difficult, but certainly takes some time with all that spinning deer hair. So that's it, everybody. I appreciate you watching. Y'all take care, and we'll see you next time.